Discrimination, a persistent stain on society, continues to shape our interactions. From blatant past prejudices to subtle present biases, it remains pervasive. This essay delves into the evolution of discrimination since the 1980s, exploring our progress. We'll examine inclusivity complexities, the resentment it breeds, and the path to a just future.
The 1980s presented a stark reality for marginalized groups, highlighting the deep-seated issues that persisted despite legal advancements. Racial segregation, though legally dismantled, persisted in many forms, manifesting in housing, education, and public spaces. People of color faced significant barriers in housing, employment, and education, often being denied opportunities that were readily available to others. Racist jokes and slurs were often tolerated in mainstream media, perpetuating harmful stereotypes and normalizing discrimination. The AIDS epidemic, intertwined with homophobia, further marginalized the LGBTQ+ community, leading to widespread fear and misinformation. Women experienced widespread sexism in the workplace and beyond, struggling to break through the glass ceiling. They were often relegated to lower-paying jobs and faced persistent gender stereotypes that limited their professional growth. The fight for equal pay and reproductive rights faced significant opposition, with many resisting changes to the status quo. Sexual harassment was rampant, often dismissed as locker room talk, making it difficult for victims to seek justice. The lack of legal protections for many marginalized groups exacerbated the problem, leaving them vulnerable to systemic injustices. Activists and community leaders worked tirelessly to raise awareness and advocate for change, often facing significant resistance. The 1980s served as a crucible, forging a new generation of activists determined to dismantle systems of oppression and fight for a more equitable future.
Fast forward to the 21st century, and the landscape of discrimination has shifted. While overt acts of prejudice are less common, subtle biases and systemic inequalities persist. Microaggressions, often unintentional but harmful, permeate everyday interactions. Systemic discrimination, embedded within institutions, presents a more insidious challenge. From biased hiring practices to discriminatory lending policies, these systems perpetuate inequality. Addressing these systemic issues requires a fundamental shift in how we think about discrimination. The rise of social media has added complexity, providing a platform for marginalized voices but also breeding hate speech. Navigating this landscape requires understanding both individual biases and systemic inequalities. We must confront our own prejudices and challenge the systems that perpetuate discrimination. The fight for equality is far from over, presenting new challenges and opportunities for progress.
Have we truly progressed in the fight against discrimination? This question sparks debate. Some point to the legalization of same-sex marriage and increased minority representation as signs of progress. Others argue these advancements are superficial and fail to address systemic inequality. The shift from overt to covert discrimination creates a false sense of progress. Blatant acts of racism, sexism, and homophobia are less socially acceptable but haven't disappeared. Disparities in wealth, education, and healthcare outcomes suggest systemic discrimination remains entrenched. Despite decades of activism and legal reforms, marginalized communities continue to face significant disadvantages. The backlash against inclusivity and diversity initiatives suggests progress is not linear. The fight for equality is ongoing, and we must remain vigilant against forces that seek to undermine it.
The concept of inclusivity, while intended to create a more equitable society, has sparked resentment and unease among certain groups. This backlash often stems from a perceived loss of privilege or fear of being replaced in the social hierarchy. Those who benefited from inequality may feel threatened by efforts to level the playing field, fearing a loss of status and influence. The rise of identity politics has further fueled this backlash, intensifying feelings of division. Some argue that focusing on group identities exacerbates divisions rather than promoting unity and understanding. Critics often mischaracterize inclusivity goals as attempts to silence dissenting voices and stifle free speech. Understanding the root causes of this resentment is crucial to bridging the divide and fostering harmony. Open and honest dialogue is essential for addressing these complex issues. we must create spaces where people can express concerns without fear of being dismissed or marginalized. This requires empathy, active listening, and a willingness to engage with uncomfortable truths and diverse perspectives. Only through respectful dialogue can we hope to find common ground and mutual understanding. Building a more inclusive society requires addressing these concerns thoughtfully and with compassion.
The notion of too much inclusivity is complex and contentious, often sparking heated debates. Genuine inclusivity aims to create a welcoming environment for all, but some argue it can lead to hypersensitivity and overcorrection. Finding the right balance is crucial to fostering a truly inclusive society where everyone feels heard and respected. One critique is the fear of creating echo chambers where dissenting opinions are silenced, stifling meaningful dialogue. A truly inclusive society should allow for a diversity of perspectives, encouraging open and honest conversations. Another concern is that excessive inclusivity can lead to a culture of victimhood, where individuals feel perpetually marginalized. The focus should be on empowering marginalized groups, not reinforcing a narrative of victimization, but fostering resilience and strength. Navigating inclusivity requires careful consideration and difficult conversations, often challenging our own biases. There is no one-size-fits-all solution, as each community has unique needs and challenges. The key is to remain open to feedback and adaptable to changing circumstances, continuously evolving our approach. Creating a society where everyone feels valued and respected requires ongoing dialogue, self-reflection, and a commitment to growth.
Moving beyond performative allyship requires a deeper commitment to challenging systems of oppression. It's not enough to post supportive messages or attend protests. Real change requires sustained action and confronting our own biases. This means actively listening to marginalized communities and advocating for policies that promote equity. One crucial step is to move beyond symbolic gestures and engage in meaningful action. This could involve volunteering, donating, or raising awareness about inequality. True allyship requires challenging the status quo and disrupting systems of power. Fostering real change means centering the voices of marginalized communities. We must create space for them to share their stories and solutions. This requires ongoing learning and self-reflection. We must constantly strive to educate ourselves and grow in our understanding of discrimination.
Building bridges across divides requires open communication and empathy. We must create spaces where individuals from different backgrounds can share experiences. This requires listening actively and engaging in respectful dialogue. Building bridges is about finding common ground and building relationships. Education plays a vital role in dismantling prejudice and promoting inclusivity. From early childhood, we must teach the importance of diversity and inclusion. Policy changes are essential in creating a more inclusive society. We must address systemic inequalities in housing, employment, education, and healthcare. Each individual has a role in building a more inclusive future. We must all commit to challenging our biases and advocating for change. Building bridges is a collective effort that requires everyone's participation.
The journey towards a truly inclusive society is ongoing. While progress has been made since the 1980s, significant challenges remain. We must move beyond superficial tolerance and embrace genuine integration. This requires addressing both individual biases and systemic inequalities. It demands ongoing dialogue, education, policy changes, and individual action. Creating a truly inclusive society requires balancing protection of marginalized groups with open dialogue. The fight against discrimination is a journey, not a destination. We must remain vigilant and continue to push for progress. Complacency is not an option. We must all commit to creating a more just and equitable world.
Beyond labels and categories lies a shared humanity. Recognizing this shared humanity is essential to overcoming discrimination. We are all interconnected, and our fates are intertwined. True progress lies in recognizing the worth and dignity of every individual. Let us choose empathy over apathy and connection over division. Let us build bridges of compassion and understanding. The path forward is challenging, but filled with hope. Together, we can create a world where everyone thrives. Let us embrace the richness and diversity of human experience. Share this video with others and share your thoughts in the comments below. The future we create is up to us. Let us build a future where everyone belongs.